Hi, Laura.
Hi, Sherry.
So today we're covering something that's really important to be able to keep the classes organized. I tell the story all the time when I first started teaching cooking classes, how I was just running from one to the next, and I would throw the receipts on my desk. No idea if I was making money, losing money, very poor record keeping back in the day. I'm going to share screen and show the forms that are the most important. I threw in the waiver just because that's for people to protect themselves.
It's such a great topic, mostly because even if you think you are organized, if you don't have the right systems in place, and then you think, oh, I'll come back and I'll reorganize this, or I'll make this all pretty, or whatever the case is, more often than not, you're probably not going to do it, or you're not going to remember all the details that you need to remember. I use lists every day in my business, and it is so helpful.
I mean, honestly, I know that even when you think you're organized,
Yeah.
like this business is a little pressure when you're under the gun. So I could tell you a story about the time I was teaching a cooking class and thought I was organized before I had all my forms and every system in place, scrambling, packing up ingredients, get to the place. What did I forget? I was making something with chicken. Well, I forgot the chicken. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We go over that in the academy, as you know, how to pack and how to stay ultra organized. But this is really the beginning. So I'm going
Yeah.
to share screen. Where do we begin with your forms? Let's begin with our cooking class show checklist. These forms are all available in the Wellness Cooking Academy. You can create them yourself, but this definitely saves you the trouble if you have these forms. So someone reaches out and they tell you they want to have a cooking class. Print out this form and staple it to the outside of a hard copy folder. Start by writing down the date, the time of the class, then all of their personal information, how many people are they going to have, the cost per person, and then how much the class is. You will take a deposit usually. The balance is collect usually before class, if not at class. You want to always thank your host. These are just ways for you to keep track of everything. So if you have an assistant, did you pay them? Did you invite the press? Keep track of that. Thank them. You're going to bring with you to class your surveys, your brochures, your business cards, your promotional products, whatever you have, pens, of course, the recipes and the handouts. If you have a cookbook, if you sell another product, bring your order forms. You could take payments and your calendar. And then if a kids party, a lot of times they have themes, colors. If they have a theme, keep track of it here, or if they have any special requests. So your shopping list, bring this to the store. And in the academy, if you follow those recipes, we give you the shopping list. And you can just bring that with you. Try to keep track of your costs. If you're a chef, you are keeping track of your costs to the penny. I mean, they divide out ounces. You don't need to do that. If you bought a bag of onions one time and you reuse them at a next class, it doesn't even need to be on here. So these are things that you're buying. Or if you already have it in stock, you can keep track of it down here. You want to keep track of your total cost. And then going back to what we did on the checklist, how much did you charge per guest? How many guests? But what was the cost of your class? When you total up the cost of all of these products, put it here, and then you're going to have a net profit. When I first started teaching cooking classes, I did not do this. Throw the receipts down on my desk and go on to the next class. Very important that you know where you're at and what your business is doing. Bring the sign up form with you. Pass it around at the end of class. People will give you their email. And this is a great way for you to build your email list. And then if you hand out a survey at the end of class, this is gold for you. What was your class title, date? And then if they want to put their name on it, and then did the class meet their expectations? Are they going to make the things? Who do they cook for? And then they can rate your class. And this is where it gets really important for you. What types of classes do they prefer? weekends, evenings. That helps you to book future classes. This is something that we recommend that you use a class waiver. You always want to release yourself from any liability. So that is it for the most important forms.
So Sherry, do you print this out and like how do you organize all your papers when you go to a class? Are you using folders for each class or do you pre-print all this?
It's very important that from the very beginning, when you know you're going to do this business, that you keep track of everything in folders. So I recommend you do a digital folder and hard copies. I could still to this day go and open a file. When you're at class, sometimes you might want to take notes on like the handouts. When you actually write yourself little notes and you keep those hard copies when you go the next time, you know what we always say, right? Rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And when you print out that checklist, what I always did, I'm driving to the class and I would staple it to the outside of a hard copy folder. It has everything I'm going to hand out to the people, handouts, the recipes, just everything in one folder ready to go. And when that was stapled on top, I had the directions, the people's phone number. There were times when it was in my front seat. That was pretty helpful because I couldn't find the place or you don't want to be scrambling last minute. Like that is a very important form to just have with you. Have form will travel. Over the years, we have seen a lot of students who did other programs, but they didn't really do them. And so if you're not keeping track in folders, because you may eventually want to go back to it.
Right.
You have everything really organized and you have your kids' classes, your corporate classes. When you get the material delivered to you, if you store it organized, if you decide you're not doing classes for a year, you can come back to it so easily if you know where you have everything stored.
Yeah.
I hear from students that they took a course or they were going to start and then they kind of got into the digital overload. And if they didn't have it organized, they don't even know where it is. I get busy too, but you brought up lists before. I have 2 working lists always going. I have my to-do list, but your brain gets overloaded, right? So after I do it, it's not really done because it's bounced into someone else's court. So it goes on my pending list. I'm not thinking about that for the rest of the day. I'm just waiting for someone to respond. And I'll check it again the next day or later. Like, it's not on my list because the list can get pretty exhausting.
Oh, I do that too. I mean, you got a gazillion emails, and even if I don't know the answer for them yet, I always email them so I can get that off my list. And then it just kind of buys you time, but also puts it back in their court. So now you're waiting on them. So it's a great way to get stuff off your list.
I started realizing that I think life is a ping pong. It frees up your energy when you just deal with it right then, bounce it out of the court. Because I am guilty of this, and I know you know me a long time, where sometimes I'll have something sitting on my desk and I'm going to do it. It sucks your energy out.
It does. And then you don't even want to look at it. Then it's almost like that's that project or that task that I don't want to deal with. And you might not be ready to deal with it, but just make sure you're communicating with the people. Don't know the answer, I'll get back to you. You're at least you're moving it forward to some point. And people love the communication too. So it's a good way to get things off your list, make everybody happy, and you feel not so overwhelmed.
And I think sometimes I overload my list. I put everything on there. And I've been getting really better about not putting things that aren't really that important on my list because I want to watch a video, reorganize something. It doesn't really have to go on that list. I have another list too that is my want to do list.
Yeah.
Because those are not going to move my needle. They're not critical. And I think after you look at it enough times, you say, oh, I really need to do that.
Or just take it off completely. Like there's some things that are on my list and I'm like, you haven't even attempted that in 6 months. Get it off of there. It's nothing.
Yeah. I think you and I do that when we work on projects. I have these things on my list and sometimes after a while, I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like it's a way, but I think it's important to do that. Drop it on the list because it just puts it out on paper and then you are either going to move forward on it or you're not.
Right.
One
Yeah.
thing I noticed though is my lists are sometimes way too small. I don't know what I was saying.
Ah,
What actually is the item I want to do, and
yeah.
how does it get done? Because
Yeah.
otherwise later on I'll be like, it's so vague that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I have those items on my list too. But when you put them on there, you're like, well, this is just so obvious. Anything else you want to talk about?
I'm just trying to look at my list.
Well, you know what? Why don't you remind people it's almost the end of the month and about your program of the month.
Wrapping up. Thanks for joining Sherry Mraz and Lori Riddle at the Wellness Cooking Academy. For more information about the program, jump over to the website. See you soon.